I switched from coffee to tea a while back. So when my wife and I started going back to Starbucks for our dates, I didn't know what to drink. But the decision there was kind of like how I made progress in tech. Maybe it'll help you today. Let's talk about that plus other things. How I got into tech. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. Yeah, I'm very thankful you're here listening. Some of you have even talked to me and said, thank you for your podcast. And that means so much to me. So thank you for reaching out. I have the best fans. And I know that because they're listening when it's not cool to listen to this podcast. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I hope you get something from each episode. And today, I thought of a life situation which may be sort of a key to how to make a shift in your brain. I know for myself, there was a shift in my brain when I went from coffee to tea through a lot of crazy circumstances and bad conversations and bad relationships. I had some health issues, and the people who I would say caused some of these health issues, they don't know it because they don't talk to me. But this was tough for me to get over. I tend to be a person who does want to make people happy, but deep down inside of a quote unquote people pleaser is someone who wants to be liked. And that's why I make people, or I try to make people like me, is because I have that need, and that is not a good need. Okay, and I forget that deep down I'm loved by God. And so it doesn't matter if people like me. And then once I know that God loves me, I can turn around and have a relationship with other people and actually try to love them instead of not worrying about them at all. I care more. So, anyway, some of my sins, my faults, my tragic errors, I'm sure combined with the situation to cause me to have bad health after some conversations and relationships. And because of my bad health, I made a decision that I would stop drinking coffee. Now, I also have to say this. It's a very interesting way that I stopped drinking coffee. It was while I was sick. I don't know what I had, COVID, I'm not sure. It didn't really feel like COVID because I've had that before. But a couple years ago when I was sick, I was not drinking any coffee because I just didn't want any. And so I said to myself, I'm going to be done with coffee now. And so I just, for one day, I didn't drink it. And the next day, I didn't drink it. So in a way, I quit cold turkey. And in a way, I did not. I was helped by a situation. So then when I went to Starbucks with my wife for dates, we often go out on dates. They are very inexpensive dates. I mean, they do cost some money to get coffee and maybe something to eat. Now, we had always gone to this Starbucks because it's pretty close to our house. But now that I couldn't drink coffee, or didn't, I drank tea. But at Starbucks, if you know, they're not big on tea other than just a few kinds of tea. And I didn't really know what to get there. So I started telling my wife, let's not go to Starbucks anymore. Well, we ended up going to Starbucks more and more. And the reason is that in my mind, I made the decision that I was going to compromise. I had something that was better than something else. Being with my wife and being with her and playing cards at Starbucks together for an hour, usually around noon or in like on a Saturday morning. That was more valuable to me in the long run than drinking a drink that I enjoyed the most. So I started drinking green tea at Starbucks. And I think Emperor's Clouds and Mist is one, if you care to know. I without getting into the details about the tea too much, I want to talk a little bit about the decision-making process there. Not only to quit coffee, but also to go to Starbucks with my wife and drink a less enjoyable drink on my side. So, to do that, I would like to read from the Bible. I have a verse that's way out of context at this point, but I'd like to read it. It is John 14:12. And it says, and this is Jesus speaking, I tell you the truth, anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. He will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. All right, so Jesus is saying, I tell you the truth, anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. And often when people read that, they don't know the context of the gospel. And if you're not a Christian, you may not understand this, but the gospel says that we are sinners. God created us perfect, but we sinned. But Jesus Christ came to save us, and he died for our sin, and he rose again. He conquered death. And so that's certainly the greatest miracle if it happened, the greatest miracle ever. And because of that, when you put your faith in Jesus, you also can conquer death and live forever with him. And when you put your faith in Jesus, you turn from that sin that caused you to lose a relationship with God. A holy God can't be with sinners. So, what an item of grace. Now, if you have never heard that story before of the gospel, or you don't know the Bible very much, you may hear this. I tell you the truth. Anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. And you may think that you have to do good things. So, in other words, you may think it says, do the things that I do so that you can have faith in me. But that's not what it is. It's an evidence. So, Jesus is trying to tell his disciples, hey, it's okay. Look around you. The people that are doing what I do, it's possible they have faith in me. Because you're crazy to do what Jesus did when you don't have faith in him. Because the whole thing about Jesus was that people viewed him as a crazy person, anti-religion, basically, anti the common religion. And they viewed him as not really following the Roman government either because he wanted to be, he called himself king a lot. So there were a lot of problems with following Jesus if you didn't really trust in him that he was God. So, how does this all relate to switching to a tech career and my coffee and tea, quote unquote, experiment? Well, the thing is, when I believed that I could quit coffee, that's when I did it. When I believed that being with my wife was more important than getting my own way, then I could do it and actually enjoy the tea that I didn't want to drink because I was with my wife, Jennifer. The Now I am taking John 14:12 and I am extrapolating it onto a very, very light circumstance. But I'm telling you that Jesus and God, and if you read the scripture, you'll see a lot of this. God has some idea. If you don't believe in God, then maybe consider this. There's a lot of writings about how people work. There's something about God that he knows how people work and how we're made. And if you don't believe that God made you, then try to learn from this as well anyway, and try to consider what I'm saying. But it seems like there's something in us that operates where if we believe something, we will do the things. Okay? But you can't just keep doing the things and start to believe it. Now, you may be able to. That may happen, but it is not going to be certain. But what is certain is if you make a decision, that's one thing. But if you believe fully, this is who you are. And if you are changed in your mind, or the Bible calls it the heart, if you are changed, then you will do certain things. Now, the change Jesus was talking about was a miraculous change. Your change into a tech career getter, someone who works in the tech industry, that could be a spiritual change, but mostly it is a mental change. It's probably not a miracle. Like like in scripture there's a miraculous change. Now it could be, but what I am telling you is you have to become in your mind someone who sees the value of getting into a tech career more valuable than doing what you're doing now. And over time, you will see things start to change in your behavior. Um, this goes contrary to what most people may tell you, and that is, well, take this course. Well, um, if if the course is, I could put out a course and I would put this content in the course, but if the course is learn these skills, that doesn't quite make you into someone who is a tech worker. Okay. Now, getting skills is good. And maybe you're going to get the skills because you know you're going to be in the tech industry and you believe that. And that's the best way to make progress. If you just think I will just go on YouTube and start to learn some things and then apply to jobs and see how it goes, and I'm just going to keep doing what I do in my other job, um, and we'll just see kind of what comes out of this. That is a position, a posture of failure. It is just predisposed failure. And that is because you haven't made a change in your mind. You haven't become that in your mind. You don't know that you're going to do it. And so that is where switching to a tech career is very, very difficult and it's going to be very challenging for you. Um, let's make a little bit of a shift here and talk about kids' bikes. All right. I put that in the title because um, my kids getting bikes, I have 6 kids, and I remember almost every time, if I can look back in my photos and look back in my videos and even print photo albums. Yeah, I have kids that are that old. I will see some memories of getting bikes for the kids on their birthdays. And I know I can tell you right now that I don't like putting together kids' bikes. And some of the bikes I had to do a little bit of assembly, not a lot, but most of them I could just roll in. But whether or not I had to assemble for the birthday or I had to do repairs afterward, Or before a bike ride, I had to get out there and for an hour, get all the bike's tires pumped up. The beginning of summer, whether all of that happened or not, I can tell you that I did not look forward to those little items of work. I tell you, when maybe you're like this, maybe you're not. But when I see that there's going to be a lot of work involved in something, I shy away. Just like going to coffee, maybe I'm just a very selfish person. I know I am. Okay, confession booth here. But I know that I have to have a bigger purpose, a greater purpose outside of me that I have faith in, that I believe in order for me to do any amount of work. Now, a very, very easy metaphor for this or application is when you go to work at a job, you have a certain paycheck that you expect, and that's why you do it. But a paycheck isn't enough. You will quit a job, and you think back to jobs you've had where you wanted to quit. There was something going on at the job that was either bad or there wasn't enough belief that this was something you were created to do. And so the money wasn't good enough to do it. And others of you maybe keep doing the same job over and over, and you just get used to the fact that you're going to have to do some things you don't want to do in life, and that's just the job. And some of you dread your work, and you've learned to handle it in other ways that aren't wise. And you try to compensate outside of your work to make your life happy, and because you're too scared to make a change in your career. All right. So, um, and there's a mixture of all those situations. But the truth is, and here's where I want to apply a little bit of my situation with the kids' bikes to you getting into a tech career. And that is, nobody in the world, if they heard about me getting my kids a bike for their birthday, each of them got a bike for their birthday, nobody in the world would say, that's a bad dad. That's a bad move. But if they could see inside my heart, what they would see is someone who dreads having to do the work of fixing up the bikes, getting them all ready, and even um, even presenting them to my kids. I remember there were some bikes where I had to do a little bit of, like I said, assembly, and I just didn't want to do that. I felt like there were better things I had to do with my life and my time. And so I know that it was a great move for my wife and I to buy our kids bikes. And I know that that was something the kids will remember forever. And every single bike ride we went on as a family, I still remember as a good memory. And I know they will remember that too, where the family was all together and it was hot or it was cold or we were hungry or tired or whatever, thirsty. Yeah, but the big event, going on bike rides as a family, which is something you should do too, if you could, by the way, um, that was worth it. So because I knew there was something greater ahead, something that was going to change my family, I could do the hard things underneath it that supported it and got us there. Would I ever want to become a bike repair person for my job? Never. So, but that became a part-time job whenever spring rolled around and I had to move all the bikes and get them ready and change tires, pump them up, grease, oil, all that stuff. Change seat heights. So, where am I going with this to try to help you? Maybe you're struggling with some of the hard things in code right now. Maybe you're going through a little bit of regret that you bought a certain course. Maybe you've been asking advice from someone on how to switch to a tech career and you've been kind of just lazy about it to get it done because it seems like a lot of work. After this podcast, I'd like you to challenge yourself. Are you really someone who believes that you can get into a tech career Are you really someone who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to be that someday? And so here are the things I need to do, and they're hard work. Are you someone who's looking around at your family or your loved ones or your own future and saying, I care more about those people or the future than I do about today? Or are you someone who's struggling to find motivation, who gives up after a few hours, who tries a little bit of code for 5 minutes and then it's a week before you get to it again? If that's you, I challenge you to consider what you really believe about those other people and about your future. Because deep down in there, if you really think, you're going to find out why you're not doing the work. I hope this has been a little bit of help to you, and to make progress today, you need to consider your future and whether or not it's worth it to do a little more work today. All right. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you will reach out to me at any time. info@tekleed.com with questions. I'd love to help. How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s is the podcast that tries to help you switch into a tech career, no matter what your background is, give you some support and some encouragement along the way. Now, if you're stuck and you need some help, give me an email at info@tekleed.com, info@tekleed.com, all spelled wrong. And if you're looking for a Facebook group to get involved in or anything else, you can look at the show notes and we got some info down there. Until next time, my name is Brooks Haynes and I've been your host today, and I thank you for listening. From the shores of the Vermilion River in southeastern Minnesota, have a good day.